Hi, in this video I'll be talking about InvestWell. InvestWell is a software for wealth advisors, distributors, registered investment advisors, etc., who are into the business of managing investments of their clients. So we'll be starting with investments in products like mutual funds, and then we'll talk about monitoring of investments in other products as well. Now, if you are a registered advisor or a distributor, then mostly you would be having an ARN number or an advisory number, and you would be registered with CAMS or CARVI, etc. for mailback services. InvestWell lets you import data from these mailback services. Once you configure your mailbox and put your respective passwords, etc., InvestWell can import this data for the transactions that you do on your code into InvestWell directly. There is obviously an option to import these files manually, and all the file numbers, etc., are mentioned for transactions, for folios, for AUM, for SIPs, etc. So once you get on board, we'll give you a full list of what transaction files are to be obtained and imported. Now once these are imported into the software, for mutual funds you're pretty much complete. That all purchase, redemptions, etc. into the system. You can, as I said, you can also import data through CAS. CAS is a common account statement which is given to investors. Now if the investor shares the CAS file with you, which is a PDF file, you can even import this into InvestWell. This can be of use when you have clients who are wanting to take your services but not associated with you at the moment. Okay. In addition to these, if you have clients who have done transactions for someone else, you could record it manually also. There is a provision to enter data manually into the system, wherein you select the client, fund, scheme, etc., and then put in the respective amount that he has invested or sold. All this data together would come in his portfolio statement, which would be having entries in your code and maybe other codes also, and maybe direct investments also, in case you have got the CAS statement PDF from the investor, which he has shared with you. Now, other than mutual funds, InvestWell can let you enter data for shares, equity shares. We're talking of delivery trades here. There are provisions to import such files from your trading application, which could be a contract note in PDF format, or a Odin format file, or a Sherkhan or a Motilal Oswal format file. We can do other files or formats also, depending on availability of those formats with us. Once you import this share data, that will also appear in the same portfolio statement together with the mutual fund data. Mind you, we supply the daily NAVs of mutual funds and also the end of day rates of shares also, so that your portfolios are up to date. Other than these, if you have fixed income instruments, or your clients are investing in bank FDs or company FDs, etc., or bonds, you could enter that data in InvestWell as well. So for example, there is a FD which started in say 2016, which is for say 3 years period. You could enter that with the respective interest rate over here. The interest rate needs to be input by you yourself, depending on the period and the company. Okay. Now, other than this, there would be one more component, which would be any other asset classes. Suppose your client invests in say property or gold or something. You could define all such asset classes in the system. Okay. It could be a PMS also, wherein we don't get the NAVs, but then all these other entities you could define, and then you could create a purchase transaction for such entries also. For example, over here, let me see if I have any entry. Otherwise, I can make an entry wherein you have, let's say, a client who has made a purchase in, let's say, a PMS scheme, which could be, let's say Synergy PMS on a particular date. let's say one unit of, let's say, 25 lakhs. Okay, when I take the portfolio statement, I'll have all these entries consolidated. Lastly, insurance. In case your client is specifying the life and general insurance policies that he has purchased through you or anyone else, you could record those in the system also, and again give him an insurance portfolio along with the investment portfolio. And insurance would mean life and general insurance both, so that when you give your statement, the client knows when his next premium is due and how much was the last premium. Okay. Now, once you have imported all this data, you may want to query it also. I'll come to reports, but before that, you may want to query such data also. So you can query a client by name or PAN number or anything like that, and view the entire client master. Client master would typically have more attributes, such as his anniversary date or his relationship manager, that is the person who is responsible for this client in your company. The client rating, you can give each client a rating. I'll talk of more features we have in relation to CRM or maintaining the relationship with the client. You can define a portfolio frequency, a review frequency, when the last review was done, whether the client is FATCA compliant or not, with respect to which registrar he was compliant, what is the source of KYC, other account details, his income, employee, profession, etc. The bank details, the various banks in which the client has an account, etc. So all those details, the nominee details, the joint account details, KYC details, all those you can record it in the system, so that next time when somebody is filling up a form in your office or doing a transaction, he is fully aware of the client status, knowing the system itself, from the system itself. Okay, you can attach the client photograph, ID proof, etc. and record it in the system. Okay. Then one more interesting thing is, in case you want to attach goals. Suppose the client has come to you with certain goals. Say he is investing for a goal for his son's education or marriage or retirement, etc. You could define for each goal what is the start date, when is the money required. Let's say I increase this to 2030, let's say, and I say that if you retire today, you need, let's say, 1 crore rupees with you at an inflation rate of, let's say, 5% and an expected return of, let's say, 12%. Okay, so for each such goal you could put in your values which you think are reasonable. Then the next part of goal planning is wherein you assign folios to the goals to folios. Now suppose you have money in so many goals, so many folios. You can assign multiple goals to each folio, or you can assign a single goal as is the need be. So for marriage, let's say you put 50%, and for retirement you put 50% in this goal, in this folio. Some folios may be totally on one goal. Once you do this, when you see the portfolio report, you can see what is the requirement of money to meet those goals. Say for example, for vacation you have a shortfall of, let's say, 4,20,000. To meet that, you need to do an SIP of 29,000 because the goal is just 1 year back, 1 year to go. Similarly for other goals. Okay. Now the purpose of all this investment was to monitor the client portfolio. So let me take a detailed portfolio of this client, and these are just options which you can turn on and off depending on the need, and you can have a product selection also. In case you do not want to see all the products in the report, you can choose which ones you want to include and which ones you don't want to include. Now the report options at the bottom are different choices of the report. Mainly in the portfolio report, we will be showing you the unrealized part of the portfolio, which is the portfolio which you have in hand. We'll talk of the other report also, wherein you see the realized portfolio, which if you break it year wise becomes your capital gain. A detailed portfolio report would typically have each of your investment date-wise along with the appreciation that entry has received till date, the dividend, absolute return and CAGR return. Detailed report would normally be detailed in the sense that it will have each transaction date-wise. So if you have an SIP which is running into let's say 36 installments, you would have all 36 entries separately showing. Now in case he has redeemed a part of it, you may find that okay, first 5 installments are not shown because they are redeemed and the remaining ones will show. Okay, now a typical first page of the portfolio return statement would have a snapshot which will show you the investment, which is the money he has taken out from his bank, switch in, switch out, which is the money which has been switched in and out from one scheme to the other scheme. Mind you, the entries the amount of switch in, switch out may be varying if there has been a change of broker in between. Then the redemption, dividend paid out to the bank, interest on FDs or anything accrued or paid, the net investment, and then compare it with the market value of the investments, which will get you the net gain in rupee terms. Mind you, there is no mention of time factor here, which would come in the subsequent pages. Then the asset allocation, the current asset allocation in debt, equity, the broader asset classes wise. The next part of the portfolio would be showing the allocation by goal, by fund, by scheme, etc. The next part would be showing his current SIP details and STP details, saying that your money in this scheme is going to come every month, say 1,000 rupees per month, and your STP from some scheme to this scheme is say 10,000 rupees a month. Okay, the remaining part of the portfolio would be actually having each of your transaction, the purchase value, the market value as on date, the gain, the absolute return, and based on the holding period, the number of days the money has been kept, the annualized return. We also show you the benchmark return along with each investment so that you can actually compare whether your investment has done better than the benchmark or little less than the benchmark. Okay, subsequent pages would have all the investments in all the various folios. As I said, SIPs would reflect separately in these reports. So the investor, if he wants to actually tally each SIP, he could do it from here. Otherwise, I'd show you more options wherein all these get clubbed into one row so that it's easier to understand. Okay. The last pages would have his insurance summary as well. Once your portfolio part is complete, the insurance policy details are mentioned. Mind you, we do not show you the current surrender value of each insurance policy. We just show you what is the premium, what is the maturity date, and when is the next premium due. Okay. This was a current holding portfolio report. A second portfolio is also prepared, which is for his units which he has sold, which we call as portfolio returns on realized units or realized gains. Here, based on what you have sold, suppose you have sold 5 lakh worth of units, it will show you that what was the purchase cost and what was the profit and loss on those units. Okay. I'll come to the capital gain report also separately. Now, sometimes you may want to see both of these gains together. So, in case you have done purchase and redemptions in the same folio, the summary with XIRR report would actually show you the XIRR returns on the entire portfolio, considering all the cash flows within that folio. The cash flows would obviously occur when you purchase or when you redeem or do a switch in and a switch out. A dividend payout is obviously also included in the cash flow. So over here, if you see, the portfolio reports would typically have, let me just go to the next page, the total investment amount, balance units as also, total redemption, the dividend paid out, dividend reinvested, the unrealized and realized gain both, and then the XIRR. So together this XIRR return would be the complete return on his folio, on his portfolio, and the last page would typically have the total return on his portfolio, let's say 12.64 in this case. Okay. one more option I would show you here, which is the goal-wise portfolio report. Now, if the client doesn't understand long-term, short-term and all those things, you could show him the portfolio report based on the goals that he has chosen. So goal-wise portfolio report would typically mention that these were the 4, 5, 7 goals that you had planned earlier, and how those goals stand today, how much of it is complete, and what more needs to be done to make sure that you achieve them in the relevant time frame. It will also list out for each goal what investments you have, and obviously the same return figure would show against each investment. Let me just quickly show you that report and then we'll move on. It is recommended that you use goal-wise reporting more for your clients, because clients actually link their investment to goals rather than debt, equity, etc. Okay, the cover page of this report would typically mention that what was the goal, the targeted value, the inflation rate, etc. The current value is what is updated on a day-to-day basis, the completion status, and based on the expected return, what is the projected value and what is the shortfall which you will have or excess. And if there is a shortfall, what do you need to do to complete it? Do either a lump sum investment or a SIP. And in case you have some folios where you have not allocated goals, those are also mentioned so that you could allocate them first before doing a fresh investment. Okay, the subsequent pages show you the same portfolio report, but it goes goal wise. So for education, let's say you have a 36-month FD which is fetching you so much return, and for education of, let's say, Aman or Seema, in Seema Gupta portfolio you have this folio, and so on and so forth. So if you notice, there is no mention of long term, short term and debt and equity over here. It just mentions things which a client understands. So it's your pick. I mean, all these options are available. You can pick and choose what you want to see or what you want to showcase to the client. Okay. Other than this, you can also, there is an insurance portfolio report also which you can share with the client, which shows the status of all his policies separately. Okay, that these are the insurance policies, these are the life insurance or general insurance policies, and the yearly calendar as well, so that the client knows when what premium is due, so that he can plan his cash flow accordingly. Okay. Other than this, if he wants a current portfolio, current holding report quickly, a lot of times clients want to know in which folio how much units I hold, so that if he wants to redeem, then he can plan accordingly. So you can get a quick report which shows the balance units and the current valuation for each folio. And mind you, all these reports would have all the products: mutual funds, shares, bonds, FDs and any other asset classes. And all these reports can be exported to Excel or emailed to the client directly. Next is the capital gain report. In case the client has made some redemptions, then you can show him a capital gain report for the particular financial year, and this is what exactly he would need to give to his chartered accountant to file the returns. The capital gain report would have his capital gain for redemption units. It will also include the dividend which he has received, which is tax free, but okay, I didn't have any redemption here, so I'm seeing a nil report here. But then it would also mention the dividend summary, the dividend which is paid out or reinvested, any interest on bonds, interest accrued, because all this has to go into his tax return, and any interest on FDs which has been paid out. So interest on bonds and interest on FDs both are listed in the same report. Okay. We also do indexation based on the CII declared by the government. So in case he has invested in debt schemes on a long-term basis, we also show the indexed gain on those, so which could be straight away used for your tax calculation. There's also an interesting report where you see the yearly return comparison. See, a lot of times when the market is good, people feel that current returns are all good, but if you can show him a comparative on last 5 financial years, how his portfolio has been doing. So his XIRR return on each folio and the total portfolio together as well. So if you are in 17, then we'd show him the return from 13 onward, 2013, 14 and so on and so forth. For each scheme, each folio, and then the total. It'll just take probably a minute, but then sometimes clients want to get analytical and they want to see historical performance as well as compared to the total. In the portfolio report, what we are generating is since inception till date, but in this report we are showing you year on year basis, and year is taken as a financial year here, which would mean April to March period for 13, 14 and so on and so forth. Okay, so we are showing for each folio, for each family member, and then the grand total, which would say 29% in 13 and 12% in 2017, etc. Okay, there's a SIP and ELSS planner also, wherein this is for your own team to monitor that his current investments are in which asset class, and if you want to move about or something, you could plan from here. You could also plan that I let's say target an SIP of let's say 1 lakh from this client, and out of which say 50,000 could be in ELSS schemes. So based on your target, what is the current level of SIPs and all, and what further business you could procure from the client. So it's more from a prospecting basis that so much this client is worth so much, and your RMs probably need to target and get the business. Okay, there's also a redemption simulator. Typically, if a client has made a redemption and you want to show him that if you had not made this redemption, what would the current value of your portfolio be? So the system would kind of ignore the redemption, and using the NAVs and dividends of the subsequent period, show him that you got let's say 10% return, and if you had not sold, you may have got let's say 12% or 14% or maybe lesser also, depending on the market situation. So it includes the current NAV and the intervening period dividends also, and then shows the potential for return had the redemption not been made. So we are calculating it based on the redemption. So suppose 58,000 worth of units were sold at this purchase cost. If they were not sold, what would be the current value and what would be the extra gain or loss? Okay, if the market has gone down, there would be a loss also. So the person might have been better off selling it. So depending on the case, you could do the simulation. Okay, lastly, one interesting report we have, which is mainly used for people who bill to the client for services. You can also find out comparison of expense ratios of direct plans and regular plans, and it will show you the savings an investor would make in case he shifts to direct. Now this is obviously of use to people who can do direct plans, which is mainly RIAs, but not for the normal ARN holders. Okay, other than this, you can also, we are integrated with Morningstar, OmniMax, Value Express, etc. So if you want to transfer the portfolio values from here to any of these softwares, you could do that. You could do that, and then do any further analysis over there as well. Okay, other than these client portfolio reports, suppose you want to send these reports in a batch mode to all your investors on a frequency basis, you could do that. You could select all your clients and select which report is to be sent out, and you could either generate a file of a PDF, or you could just email these reports to your clients. So this is on a case basis. You could also configure the body of such mails. Each mail that you can send from the software, you can configure the body, the text, and make it as personalized as you wish. Okay. Then there are reports available for dividend details, NAVs. Transaction slip is also sometimes very useful. If a client has come to you and he wants to invest further in a scheme, you could generate a pre-filled transaction slip with his folio details, etc., so that he just needs to put in the amount and just sign. I'll just quickly show you a transaction slip before moving further. Now we also have a non-financial transaction slip, but let me show you a financial one, a normal one. Let's say Aditya Agarwal. So with your ARN or RIA code, EUIN, the fund scheme folio, etc., and obviously the client needs to just put in what he needs to do with this folio. There's a non-financial transaction slip also which can be generated, which would be for change of bank or addition of nominee and those kind of things. There's also an interesting report from a distributor perspective, which is to find out what transactions, what cash flow has happened over a particular period. Let's say I select a 1 year period and I want to know fund wise what has been the fund flow as a ARN holder. Investment is obviously fresh investment, switch in, switch out, redemption. Dividend payout is also shown as a minus because that reduces your AUM, and you could find out in which funds your net sales has been minus or a negative, and in which funds it has been plus. You could do it at a fund level or scheme level or applicant level also. Then if you double click on the fund, you see the respective people in which the transactions have happened. If you click on the person, you see the dates on which those respective transactions have happened. So you could drill it down to 3 levels. Okay. Sometimes you need to compare your SIPs. SIPs need to be monitored. So you can find out a comparative of SIP for, let's say, last any 2 periods. Suppose I have taken June and July here. So you could find out how many cases were there where the SIPs have increased or decreased for whatever reason, and then follow up with the investor for that purpose. The detailed SIP mining reports also, wherein you can find out how many of your SIPs are running currently, how many were procured in a particular period, how many are forthcoming. There is an installment due in the next 15 days or 30 days, etc. How many are completing the tenure in a particular period, so that you could go and tell the client to make a fresh SIP. How many were prematurely closed? SIPs can be prematurely closed by writing a letter. We also show you list of potential clients for SIP. Now this is basically clients who have never done an SIP and who do not have a current SIP obviously. So we show you a list of potential clients or potential families for SIP or STP or SWP. So as a strategy, if you use SIP or STP for investment, then you could find out how many of your clients don't have those, so that you can target them. One more is clients who have not been transacting with you. If in a particular year a client has not made a purchase, now this period is flexible. You can choose 1 year, 2 year, 3 year period. If the client has not been transacting with you, this tells you the names, the group address, etc., and the current AUM. The client may have an AUM, but if he is not transacting, that means you probably need to do something to make him transact, or to get fresh investment, or just find out what's going on. So you can do it based on no purchase, no sale, or both. Okay, so this is an interesting report from where you can target these clients to get further business. The various types of alerts that the system can generate for you. It could relate starting from birthdays to anniversaries to FDs maturing, or ELSS which is completing 3 years, or large size redemptions, etc., clients which are due for reviews. All such type of alerts the system will generate when you start the application, and you could probably send out a letter or an email, or just act on those in your own way. Okay, there's a client investment progress report also which is available, wherein you can tell the clients, US based clients normally have a requirement to show how their what the highest and lowest values of their portfolios are in a particular financial year. So we give you a daily AUM report, wherein which you can export to Excel and inform the client or share with the client that these were his investment on a day-to-day basis, based on which he can use this information to file his return in the US. Okay. Other than these, for the client, you could generate a mutual fund tally, which is a comparative performance of schemes of your choice, which could be a client specific thing also. If you want to generate it for the client, some theoretical returns for last 1 year, 3-year period or 5-year period. It could also be on a category of funds, saying you want to generate it for all mid cap funds. So you could select, let's say, mid cap from here, and for your selected mid cap funds or for all mid cap funds, adding the scheme benchmark also in case you want to. You could take trailing returns, you could take calendar year returns or financial year wise returns. And everything is flexible. You can select the periods also of your choice, 30 days, 60 days, whatever. So system will generate this matrix for you. You can sort it and play with it the way you want to, with all returns, ratios, everything in place. Okay. All these can be exported to Excel if you want to share it in Excel with the client. There is a ready-made reckoner for schemes also here, in case you want to see all schemes of, say, mid-cap nature here, and sorting with the order. And if you click on the scheme, you see the fact sheet, the respective fact sheet of the scheme, the composition of the scheme with the load, expense ratio, everything. Okay. You could sort it, or if you want to see schemes, say, of 1,000 crore and above, you could do that. You could use my scheme filter, which would show you only the schemes in which your clients have invested. So all these options you could use. There's also a SIP return wise top scheme menu, wherein it will show you the same returns but SIP returns for all those schemes. So you could find out on a period basis, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, if you do an SIP in those schemes, which one of those would give you a better return. This is all based on past data, obviously, but then you could use it for reference for suggesting schemes to your clients. Okay. You could also generate a SIP calculator for relevant schemes of your choice, but both the options are available. Similarly, an STP calculator. These are all based on actual data. So you select fund, schemes and a period, and it would generate a chart for you for educating your client that this is how STP works and this is how he could benefit from it. Or an SWP plan for retirement planning or whatever. Okay. There's a provision to send mass emails to your clients. In case you have written out a mail for some information, you could select to which clients you want to send, or you could select all your clients and just send out a mail with whatever subject, etc. you wish. It could be greetings, it could be marketing material or anything. All these mails would go one-on-one to the client. So obviously no client sees any other's email ID over there. Okay. The next thing I would come is for billing. Now, in case you're raising bills to your clients, you could do it on multiple bases from the application itself, which could be a transaction basis or a flat fee or an average AUM basis. You could select which client you want to raise a bill, for what period you want to raise a bill. The system would calculate it based on the average asset he holds in various schemes, apply the fee percentage that you would have defined, let's say 0.5% in this case, and calculate the fees for you. You could select or you could confirm for which entries you want to raise the bill, under which ARN you want to raise the bill, and generate it from here. We also take care of GST, etc. So in case you have your own GST number, along with the ARN, you should be entering your GST number, service account code, SIN number, etc. over here, so that when we print the bill, it will have all those details in place. Let me just quickly show you a sample bill. This is again for advisors and people who raise service bills to their clients. So it will have all the details required for GST purpose as well. You can update the payment details here so that the client knows where he has to pay. The basis of calculation of the bill is also mentioned so that the client should not have a question, why are you raising this bill of 88 rupees? So we show you that you have these three schemes. This is the AUM which you have in these schemes, and based on the percentage, this is the fee calculation. Similarly, when you need to raise bills to AMCs, you could do that from the system itself. Have all the GST numbers and all in place, and then when you raise a bill, the bill would look something like this. Again, your ARN number, GST number and all is mentioned, and you can raise bills to respective AMCs depending on the commission that you have received from them. Okay. Then we'll go through quickly some MIS reports which are available in the application. First being the AUM report. Now you need to be aware of your AUM, the assets under management, which you could see it under various groups. Now if you want to see it, I have chosen an option, let's say fund wise. So this would show me fund wise what my AUM is. Let's say I have 70 or say what is this 7 crore of AUM in, let's say, ICICI mutual fund, out of which there is so much of equity, so much liquid, so much gold, etc., etc. Okay. I could also see it, let's say RM wise. If I have multiple relationship managers in my company, I could see it RM wise or applicant wise, whichever way. Okay. And again, all these are exportable to Excel. We also have options for AMFI due diligence statistics. All these are required in case you need to fill up the questionnaire which you get on due diligence, that how many of your clients are of which type, corporate, HUF, individual, etc. How many are KYC compliant, what is the folio, how many active folios are there, how many active SIP folios are there. The turnover ratio you can calculate and show for which period, what has been. So suppose I want to check for, let's say, ARN 16252, the system can calculate that for 16-17 period what has been my turnover ratio. Now the turnover ratio would typically be the total purchase or redemptions in those specified schemes divided by the average AUM. Okay. And it can also let you find out how many transactions were there where you had an exit load. So these need to be reported separately. Okay. Similarly, if you want to compare how your AUM has grown over a period, you could select, say, 6 time periods, 6 dates, which could be years or months or whatever, and you could see how your business has grown or gone down by any chance over those periods. Okay. So and you can see it in lakhs and crores or whatever. There's an AUM reconciliation option available to check your folio wise balances with the respective AMC balances. This is a very useful feature which lets you rectify any error in transactions, because any transaction which is missing in the system will result in a mismatch in the portfolio. So this lets you proactively find out which folios have a problem and then rectify it by calling for a mailback for those folios. There is also a very interesting data mining report available which lets you see across all your clients what is the unrealized part of the portfolio. So suppose you want to know for one particular scheme how many of your clients are invested in that scheme. This is the way to find out, so that if you want to switch or sell, then you have the data readily with you before taking any action. There's a business monitor drill down option also available. So for any particular period, if you want to know how many let's say scheme wise I want to monitor, scheme wise how much of actual fresh sales I have done, you could do it from here itself. You could again drill deeper to find out which of your clients and on which schemes they did the investment part. Okay. Similarly, you can monitor the businesses of your sub-brokers, RMs, etc. There's a checklist option available for making sure all your transactions have actually come back from in the registrar mailback or not. There's an interesting SIP calendar report also available, which shows you how much of your SIPs are going to come in next 12 months. Because based on the SIPs that you have fed in, the system can tell you what is the actual mobilized vis-a-vis the SIPs which were supposed to come. You can send out transaction confirmation mails to your clients based on the selected parameters here. There's also a client watch option available to find out how many new clients you have acquired in a particular period. So for each of your RMs, how many new accounts he has created month wise and RM wise. Okay. There's also an interesting report to find out how many cases of switch out has happened where there was no corresponding switch in. So most likely these have been going to some other broker, a change of broker case, a switch out without switch in. So ideally these transactions you should monitor on a month-on-month basis to find out why your clients are leaving you for whatever reason. For sending out mailers to your clients, you could generate labels, etc. from here. And there's also an activity monitor, a part of your CRM engine, to find out what activities are pending your completion. So client, suppose you have invited a few clients for a seminar or a conference, or any task you have created, you could create tasks from here and then as they are completed mark their status as closed. So any internal request or external request can be logged in here, so that you and your RMs who log in into the system are always aware that these are the following things which need to be attended to. You can send out a confirmation of the activity being closed also to your clients. There's a folio query option also available. A lot of times you need to query for a particular folio what are the joint applicants, etc. So you could drill into and find out the joint applicant, nominee, bank account detail, etc. for each folio. So you can query into each client, each folio and each transaction as well. And if you double click, it will show you each purchase sale along with the balance units and as to which ARN it has been from. The system is capable of handling multiple ARNs, so you could define all your ARNs here and maintain data for the entire practice. Similarly, you can have multiple users within the application, each having his own role and access depending on the role. So typically an admin will have access to everything, and RM normally would have access to his set of client reports. Okay. Okay, there is a reconciliation option available as well. In case you take the pain to make a purchase entry for each transaction which is going through your office or a redemption, then you can use the reconciliation option to ensure that all the transactions that have been submitted to the registrar have come back the next day or the next day with the unit allotment or redemption, etc. So this way you could find out in case any entry has escaped the attention of the registrar or has been going to a wrong ARN holder by mistake. So it's a very useful option, even though very few people take the pain to make a manual entry of all the registrars. But once you do that, then this is to your advantage, that you can find out how many of such entries have not really come in the registrar mailback feed for whatever reason. Similarly, for your SIPs, since SIPs go via mandate, you can find out how many of your SIPs have actually come in the transaction feed. So if your SIP, suppose a 3000 rupee SIP was supposed to come in the particular month, if it has not come, the system would show you. This can be done on a month-on-month basis, and you could do it on a fund basis or an applicant basis also. So you would know for each applicant how much of SIPs was supposed to come and whether it has actually come or not come. So if there is a shortfall, then again it needs for a check whether the transaction got reversed due to lack of funds or any other reason. We are more or less through with the application, but then there is a back office menu also, wherein in case you want to monitor the brokerages that has come to you and whether it has come correctly or not, you could take that option wherein you record all the earning rates which you have been committed from the respective AMCs, T15, B15 category, normal transaction, SIP transaction, etc. If you take a little effort to input the various upfront and trail rates that have been committed to you, the system can actually do a reconciliation, here, and tell you that so much trail was expected and whether it has really come or not. So it will show you a receivable versus received reconciliation. So if there is a significant gap, then again you need to talk to the AMC to find out that you were committed at the rate of 2% and you have got, let's say, 1% or 1.5%, or you have not got at all. So both upfront and trail can be reconciled to a very large extent, and this is something which you should be doing to monitor the actual amounts that you have received from the various funds. There is also a payout option, wherein if you have sub-brokers to whom you need to share sub-brokerage, then you could define rates for those sub-brokers to be paid out, which could be either a flat rate or a scheme specific rate or a broker specific rate, and then you can generate payables from here itself. You could calculate payouts from here as a percentage, let's say 50% of whatever you receive or 80%, or again have a different rate for each broker. And mind you, all the service tax, GST calculations, everything is taken care from the system itself. You just need to input the respective rates, and the client should be allocated to the respective sub-brokers. There is a detailed MIS for brokerage, wherein you can find out for each fund and each scheme what you have actually received and what you have paid and what has been your net retention. Okay, so the green entries are all your income part, the yellow entries are for your payouts and then TDS, etc., and what has been your net retention. You could use filters as you need to, and you could use these summary options to view details to whichever level you wish, client wise or fund wise, scheme wise, broker or RM wise. Okay, and detail obviously would show you each transaction in detail, that for these transactions you received some commission and what was paid out. Okay, there are modules for sending emails, SMS, etc., which you could use. You could use any one of those SMS engines that we have integrated with in the application, and you could send SMSs to your clients. You could send emails to your clients for portfolios and any other miscellaneous reports. There are a lot of settings which you could use for configuring. You could set up your own logo in the system. You could configure security in the application so that whichever PDF reports that you send are, password protected. You could send out mails from Outlook or your own Gmail account, etc. Nowhere Inveswell name is mentioned in the reports, etc. you could define to keep ULIPs and direct plans in the system, or you could remove it altogether. All the bills etc. that you send to clients are all configurable. In case you're exchanging data with Value Express or Morningstar, you could configure those as well. So all these settings help you configure Investor in the way you want it to be used. The returns that you wish, the Excel export permissions also can be controlled, that you, if you do not want to give Excel export option to your RMs etc., that can be taken care of. So all in all, whatever data you maintain for your clients for his investments, you could monitor them in the software. You could churn out reports to your investors in the way you think they would appreciate it better, and you could use it for your own MIS purpose, as well as generating fresh business from the same data which you hold in the software. Thank you.